Hi, and welcome to AXSChat. We're delighted to have Lolly Daskal with us today. Lolly is a thought leader and a really influential person on social media, particularly talking about leadership and great issues that really touch the heart of what we're doing. I know that we're all fans here of your work. You're CEO of Lead From Within. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to work in the space that you work in now?
Absolutely. So as we know, some people are born and they know exactly what they want to do in life. And then some people, they fall upon it. It's like life happens and then they say, wow, this is what I need to be doing. So for me, I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be a leadership coach and business consultant. I actually was teaching what I needed to learn. And what I needed to learn at the moment in my life was more about how to be grounded and how to go through my challenges. So I was teaching meditation and I was teaching in a place called Esalen in California. And while I was there, in one of my classes was a business mogul. He was very successful and he came over afterwards and he said, I like how you teach. I like how you think. Will you help me with a business problem that I have? And when he asked me, can you help me with a business problem? I kept thinking, I don't know anything about business. Like, why is he asking me? And I don't know if many of you know about the Imposter Syndrome. It's this imposter that says, why are they asking me to solve something? I have no clue. But I learned very early on that I can leverage the imposter within me that has self-doubt. And I turned it around and I said, Lolly, what are you really good at? Well, I'm really good at asking questions. So all I did for the next 2 hours with this individual was ask him questions about his business. At the end of the 2 hours is, you're hired. You're my business coach, you're my leadership coach. I like the way you think. And frankly, I wasn't thinking anything. All I was doing was asking questions and doing reflective listening, meaning he was saying something and I said, oh, you mean this is what this is what you mean? And I have known this man for over 35 years. I work with him. And he was the first mentor, advocate, client that has introduced me in all these 3 decades to other businessmen and women around the world. Why? Because there's a big difference. I learned to navigate through his problem and not fix his problem. And that's what has given me sustainability for 3 decades of being in my business.
Okay, that's really interesting because I think all 3 of us definitely suffer from imposter syndrome. I know I do. Sometimes wonder, why am I here? And you do have to sort of brave it out. But I think it's really interesting. You've made the differentiation between fixing the problem for someone and helping them find a way to fix it. I'm guessing that's really the key to your work is empowering people to understand their own problems.
You hit on something very, very important right now. In my new book, The Leadership Gap, What Gets Between You and Your Greatness, I actually talk about 7 archetypes that we need to become to be great. And one of them is the navigator or the fixer. One empowers and one disempowers. One is people trust them and they want to do business with them for 3 decades. And the other one, when you're a fixer in your life, you most likely coming across as arrogant, and it costs you in your success, your relationship, and everything that you want to be. I would say it costs you in your potential.
Okay. I know Debra's got a question.
Yes, Lolly, thank you for being on. I have been following your work for many, many years. I love your book. I love, I quote you all the time. I just really like your of what you bring to the table. And I'm not surprised that this businessman understood the value you were bringing, because it's interesting. I like Neil and Antonio. I think we can speak, and you. The imposter syndrome, boy, to be honest, I thought it was more women being impacted, because I know women are really impacted by that, but it's us human beings that are impacted. But I think today, the conversation, so many of the conversations, we struggle with this on AXSChat. We have people sometimes they're just so negative. And I was at a large global conference talking about disability inclusion, and there were many corporations in there. And sometimes these corporations were in this room telling their stories for the first time, because they're sort of, in the United States, a little nervous about this community, because you know, they get sued a lot in the United States. And so we were having this really powerful, really beautiful energy, really talking about a work in progress. Nobody's perfect. We're getting there. And then one speaker said, well, I was really bothered by the way y'all did this, and scolded the entire group. The energy level, you could feel it. It was like a bunch of ghosts walked in the room. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. But I think in our complicated world today, especially in the beautiful US that you, Lolly, and I both live in, there's so much fear and there's so much doubt and there's so much imposter syndrome. How do you really help individuals, whether they're business leaders or future business leaders? How do we get past those things? One thing we can do is read your books. I highly recommend the books. And you have amazing, it's funny, we're all such fans of yours. I'm going to embarrass myself, but I love the workshops that you give and stuff. But to change the world, we have to get out of our own way. We have to believe in ourselves. What are some tips you have for everyone, including individuals with disabilities that maybe feel they don't add value because, once again, fill in the blank?
Well, just let me say something. This is a mutual admiration. I admire all three of you for what you do. Neil, Antonia, Debra, you are amazing human beings. We need to clone you, replicate you, and put you throughout the world. One thing I want to clarify, I coach at a global level. I coach at a very high level, and I also coach, I do passion projects. So I'm working with the highest and I'm working with the neediest. And this is what I have found in my research. 99%, this is a big number, 99% of individuals who want to create an impact in the world and want to make a difference in the world suffer from the imposter syndrome. If someone says they do not suffer from it, most likely they're telling a lie. That is as blatant as I can be. And I know because I coach the 1%, he's one of my clients, and one of the things that he suffers from, he has no empathy. I have to teach him how to have empathy. All of us have self-doubt. All of us want to be perfect. All of us are driven. All of us want to make an impact. So if that is true for all of us, if that's the groundwork, that it's true for all of us, what do we do? The reason why my book is so important is that I read a book a day. I don't know if you know this.
No.
Every single book that I read, anything on psychology, philosophy, everything that is out there new and current, really doesn't allow you to embrace your weaknesses. It doesn't allow you to own your weaknesses. But I believe what you don't own ends up owning you. Oh. And so I'm a big advocate of leveraging your weakness. If you have self-doubt, have awareness about it, now what do we do about it, right? Now that we all have it, all four of us, and every single person that exists that is listening to this, we're all in this together, what do we do? So in my book, I go through a couple of things, but I'll give you two of them today that will make a big difference. Number one is the driver for the imposter syndrome is that we're busy comparing ourselves to others. If we're constantly looking over our shoulder, look what Debra's doing, look what Antonia is doing, look what Neil is doing, I want to do that too, we will never measure up because we're all different people and we're all here to do something different. We have our own purpose, right? And we have our own potential. So in order to leverage the imposter within that, I have a ritual that I started 27 years ago that I still do every day because guess what? As I announced, I have self-doubt, right? Sometimes I'm sitting in a boardroom with 10 men, I'm the only woman, and I go, what am I doing here? And so I go, Lolly, leverage the self-doubt, leverage the imposter. And the question that I ask myself every single evening, it sounds like this. What can I do today that was better than yesterday? And what could I do today that is better tomorrow? And by doing this question, this one question, what can I do today better than yesterday? What could I do today better than tomorrow? I'm not looking outward. I'm not looking externally what everybody else is doing. The only thing I'm doing is measuring my own success, my own level of comfort, my own master of skills, who I am and what I'm all about. What we know is what we measure gets done, and I'm measuring myself. So that's number one. So stop comparing yourself to others. Go inside. Lead from within. Number 2, and this is very short. If you're planning to be perfect, you're planning to fail. There is no such thing as perfect. It doesn't exist, and it doesn't allow us to be human. And I just want to add one more thing. I mentioned that I read a book a day. The reason I read a book a day is because I want to be today smarter than I was yesterday. So think of little rituals that you can do. Read blog posts, join this chat. You have 3 amazing human beings that you can learn from weekly. Do something every day, every week to master your skills. So I've given you 3 really important ways to leverage the imposter within.
Very powerful, very powerful. And I definitely recommend the book because, as you said, 99.9 probably % of us. And I just think empowering each other to be their best is so important. And I know that some of the work that we're doing on AXSChat, the community has been very surprised at the success of it. And they've said, we don't understand. You came out of nowhere. How did this happen? But I think really being authentic. And I think that's what you're all about, Lolly. It's about being authentic. And you can't always be looking over your shoulder because then the ego's in place. And I want to say one more comment and then give it over to Antonio. I was in a meeting last week in New York City, and I was meeting with a very prominent CEO and his team. And in our community of inclusion of people with disabilities, we often are saying, we got to get the CEOs in the room. But the problem is you can't get the CEOs in the room until you have something to talk about that they understand, that they understand that why they need it. I mean, there's stuff we have to do. So sitting in this meeting, I was with the CEO. He was so excited and fired up about what this brand is going to do and all these other brands. And all I could think was, in between, I was listening, but I just kept meditating and feeling so grateful and so thankful. And it's like, thank you for letting me be here. Thank you to myself, to the universe. And I think remembering to be grateful when we are at the table also is something that I'm learning.
Beautiful. So beautiful. One thing I want to say is when we go to our ego, I created something many years ago. It means edging greatness out. So
yes,
if you want greatness, don't come from an ego. Be grateful and be authentic. Brilliant, Debra. Very brilliant.
Thank you, Lolly. Antonio, I know you want to talk to Lolly.
Thank you, Debra. So in a very subtle way, you have mentioned about the importance of learning every day, of developing ourselves, and try to be better. What do you see that curiosity as an important role in the way how we discover the world? But you mentioned in the beginning that you are also doing some work with meditation. So let's look at trying to learn and improve and consume information that is out there, and then the other side, meditating, knowing ourselves. Where is the balance between the two?
What a great question. I'm so happy you asked that because many people ask the same question, not only to me, but to themselves. How can you balance all the things that you have to do and yet go inward, right? How do you have external and internal? And I don't believe in balance. Again, it's like I don't believe in being perfect. I believe in integration. We have to learn how to integrate what is going on in our lives. So I live a very busy life. I work with clients all day. I'm always on a plane, a train, a car, or on the phone. And so what I do, how do I integrate mindfulness and mastering new skills? So I dedicate my early mornings between 4 o'clock and 6:30 to reading. And I dedicate my evenings right before bedtime, not even preparing for the next day, but for gratefulness and this exercise of meditation, of going inward and measuring from within. And so it's like bookends of my day, right? I work on myself in the morning and I work on myself in the evening. And during the day, I allow myself to be very present with whatever work I have to do. If I am talking to someone, I'm talking to them. I'm not worrying about how can, I need to do something else or I need to run to another client. No, I am fully present. So 2 things, work on yourself, but integrate it into your life. And when you have the moments of whatever you're doing, be very present.
Thanks, that's great. Go on, Antonio.
Quite a challenge because every day we have these devices. We're always
Yep.
with them. They are useful and at the same they disturb us at the same time. So it's important that we somehow are able to switch them down, put them a little bit apart. But at the same time they are a tool for work. So can you tell us a bit about that? How you manage that space? Because you have to talk with customers, you have to have them there sometimes on the phone with you. How do you somehow are able to go a little bit out of it?
Great question. Again, very important questions because we all want to know the answer to that. My biggest, I think the biggest secret or the biggest how I run my business is managing expectations. So with every single person, I will say, I have 30 minutes. That's all I have. Let's do whatever we can in these 30 minutes. If it's over 30 minutes, I'll get back to you. I don't pick up my phone. I don't get distracted. I'm very present, but I manage expectations. And I also schedule my day where I know that I could manage what I need to do. And as we know, life then throws us curveballs, right? And something happens and it gets out of whack. So what I do is, again, I manage expectations. I tell those around me something came up. I'm very transparent. I'm very authentic. I communicate everything. And I feel that if you communicate with people, people will understand and people will be okay with it. But if you're busy and you're distracted and you don't communicate and you don't manage assumptions, it ends up costing you. So I go that extra mile of including people in what I'm working on, what I need to get done, how long it will take me. And like I said to you guys earlier, I can do this, but I need to do a full stop at a certain time because I have to honor my next client. That's managing expectations. And it works. It really works. Wait, tell me, does it work? Did it work for you guys?
Yeah. No, absolutely works fine. And I think that this is something.
Yeah.
This is absolutely something that we see too often not happening in business life. People are always afraid to say no. I see it all the time. People don't want to give people the bad news up front. What that tends to happen is that then they give them worse news afterwards when they're unable to deliver the things that they promised that they knew that they would never be able to deliver in the first place. So yeah, I think honesty is the best policy, but it's hard sometimes because people feel pressure. So I know that again that it takes a certain amount of confidence to be able to be upfront about setting those expectations, especially if someone else has different expectations. So how do you close that? How do you close that gap between someone's wants and desires and what you actually can deliver?
Great question. So I think it's the 6th chapter of my book, we have to be truth tellers. If you're not, a truth teller is someone who really prides themselves on being honest and speaking with candor. What people don't realize, if they withhold information, if they tell half truths, if they don't communicate and manage assumptions, you know what happens? Paranoia sets in. People start to make up stories. Why isn't she calling me back? Why isn't she doing that? Then what happens? Suspicion is born. So you become a deceiver who creates suspicion, even if you're the nicest person, and it ends up costing you in your success. So in the book, I talk about what we need to do. Something is very interesting that you said. You said that, telling the truth is hard. Saying no is hard. In my research, I have found, and this is really scary, that every 3rd sentence when people speak is a lie. So being a truth teller is very difficult. So I'm extremely mindful when I'm present to tell the truth. I don't think I could make it. I think this won't be as good as you think it could be. Can you give me more time? I think, and I urge every single client that I ever worked with, tell them the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Why? Because the truth might hurt for a little, but a lie will hurt forever. So I think that's why you should honor the truth teller within you.
Okay, so I agree. I think that quite often, though, there are management cultures where it is difficult to tell the truth, because we've still got this hierarchical structure where you must always tell people what they want to hear rather than what they need to. So when one of your clients is in that kind of situation, how do you coach them to disabuse someone of their illusions in a way that diffuses that situation? Because quite often it can be quite fraught, because you've got the power play going on between the manager and the person that needs to tell them that the emperor has no clothes.
Oh, what a great question. First of all, this happens on a daily basis. This is not what you're describing happens all the time.
I know.
Every organization I work with, right? It's like, I just saw something the other day. I was in an organization where the leader gets up and says, we need to be honest, and it's one of our values, candor. And then someone asked 2 seconds later, okay, we want to demonstrate that value, but you have us working in silos. We don't work with each other. You don't allow us to communicate with each other. What can we do in order to be honest? And guess what that CEO did? He didn't even answer him. He moved on and said, anybody else have another question? And I was sitting in the audience. I was sitting there at this town hall, and I'm thinking, we're in trouble, right? So I went over afterwards to this individual and I said, kudos to you, congratulations, because you came forward, what I call the hero. The hero is someone who's courageous in an environment where most people would be a bystander because they're fearful. And I said, kudos to you. So the thing that I'm not big into poking the bear. I'm not big on, you don't run a culture that you said is candor and you don't live up to your values. That's not how I coach. What I did is I said to him, why don't you invite yourself to sit down with your team? Why don't you lead from within? Why don't you start the example of what it's like to break down a silo? Stop waiting for your CEO to get it right, because he has no clue at this point, sorry. But the thing is, you have to lead by example. What would it mean for you to have having lunch with another team? What would it mean to break down the walls? And he got so empowered from having an action to take instead of thinking, I'll never do anything. He was like, Monday morning, we'll have this lunch. And he's like, we'll talk to each other. We will break down the silos, even though the culture has created it.
I think that's very, very powerful, Lolly, and very wise. And I will just say that as I was in corporate America for many, many years in the banking industry, and then I started my own company. And I also am, we all have our stories, and I'm a girl from the South. And who am I? But it's, that's my imposter syndrome. And so what I tried to do for years, I wanted people to be happy. I grew up, I learned so much growing up by a very troubled childhood. I'll just say it like that. And I grew so much, but I was always the peacemaker. And so what happened was I wouldn't tell the truth all the way. I would try to tell it in a way so that nobody would get hurt. And I had actually people, including employees, come to me and say, we love you, but you think everybody's good, and it's not that everybody's not good. It's not that black and white, but because you try so hard to make it right for everyone, you're not being authentic. And I mean, they didn't say it that bluntly, but one thing I have learned is that I am going to be transparent and I am going to be authentic. I'm going to do my best not to hurt your feelings. But there was an incident the other day on social media, and somebody right out of the gate was very negative, and I responded immediately, and I said, really? Did their name, really? And they deleted the tweet and came in and started having a more grounded conversation. So I just want to say that honoring the truth, it is sometimes very hard. And I'm working now with major corporations in the UN and things like that. And I always am always going to be authentic and tell my truth, and hopefully in a way that empowers others. But I think that has gotten us in trouble, certainly in the US, certainly globally, more than anything else. The other day I was listening, I'm like you, I read a lot of books, I listen to a lot of books on tape, and I personally think you need to be on Oprah Super Soul Sunday. I will put that out there because your voice needs to be even bigger. But I think us not being honest enough to tell each other the truth, no matter who it is. And like you said, sometimes knowing, where do I begin to make a difference? Can I make a difference? When I was in corporate America, I was an entrepreneur in the company, always. And I always was really engaged because I was grateful that that company paid my salary. I would get a paycheck. You don't always get that as an entrepreneur. So I loved it. But I think really being authentic with each other and being brave enough to tell the truth. And I think that's one reason why AXSChat has been so successful. We try to get our egos out of the way and tell the truth and really honor each other, which is why, once again, we were so honored to have you on. But I know that we're almost out of time, so I want to be very mindful of your time. But and Antonio has a question, so let me turn the mic back over to him.
No, I think it's a very simple one. But I think it's trying to. Why do you think that sometimes leaders need to give away the stage to somebody else? Okay.
Elaborate. What do you mean by that?
Sometimes we are in conversation, and even in our own Twitter chat, we have guests, we have participants, and sometimes it's good that we step in and we're able to support them in our efforts, is to empower them instead of being the attention on us. Is to give them, passing that power and that engagement to them as a way to recognize their efforts, and at the same time, no, we are here for you. How important is this in leadership?
Oh, it's, first of all, if you're a leader and you have no followers, you're not a leader, right? So one of the things about being a leader is, how can I serve you? And when it means how can I serve you, that means appreciating you, valuing you, honoring you, seeing the efforts that you do. Because if you don't, most likely people will either leave you, people won't be loyal to you. And so I think it's very, very important. Leader doesn't mean authority. It doesn't mean power. That's not what true leadership is. True leadership is, I am here to make you better than you think you can even be. And that means valuing people and really appreciating them. So I think it's very, very important. Any leader that is usually of power and authority, people don't have respect for. And we know that. We can see it through history. We can see it through all the things that we go through on a daily basis.
I think that definitely as we move into a more modern style of management and leadership, the requirements for how you lead network organizations are very different from the linear hierarchical styles that we've seen in the past. I'm very interested in how we can leverage the network, and you've got a great network, and we've been trying to replicate some of that with AXSChat with a deal of success, to really amplify the voices of the community of people with disabilities, because quite often we're not heard, or if we are heard, it's in the wrong way. So what advice do you give us for continuing to grow that influence? Because obviously you do a damn good job of that.
So I'll tell you a little story that you might enjoy. I'm going to leave out the famous names because it's not important, but the essence of the story is very important. And it'll answer the question that you just asked. I was one of the first adapters of Twitter when it first came out. And I was doing what everybody else was doing. And I wasn't growing my followers, and I wasn't having great, I didn't think I was making a difference or getting traction. And one day I was leaving my client, and he said, Lolly, that was so helpful, but I'm only going to see you in 6 weeks from now when you come back to Europe. How am I going to remember all the things that you said? I want to remember them. And so I was thinking on the plane coming back to the States, you know what? I'm going to take to Twitter. If my client wants to remember some of the things that I've said, maybe other people want to know the kind of coaching that I'm doing. So I took to Twitter and I started to tweet these little things that I call lollyisms, things that I say, you know, follow your heart, lead from the heart. And I was just like twittering away. And I went from 2,000 followers to 10,000 followers in a week. And you can look it up. Go back to Twitter's history and you can see I just like surged. What was the secret? The secret is that I decided to bring value of who I am and what I have to offer, not worrying what everybody else is doing, not mimicking everybody else's Twitter feed. So the thing is, what do you do that is unique? Number two is it got the attention of a very highly individual, and they called me and they said, well, we're charging $100,000 to our mastermind group, and we want to know how we can become influential on Twitter. We want what you have. What is the answer? And I said, it's one word. And they said, what do you mean it's one word? And I said, value. Bring value to your community. Bring something that makes a difference to your community, and then it will grow. You know, there's this beautiful movie in America, it's called Field of Dreams. You know, if you build it, they will come. Build this community and it will grow. The three of you are amazing human beings. Everything, I can tell, everything that you do is from the heart. Bring value, be of service, grow it. They will come. You will be the influencers that you want to be.
Yeah. Oh, well, and thank you. But one of the things I'm clear about is that I want not just for us to be influencers, but for people within our community to also influence, and for that to grow and expand and it to be a groundswell and a movement. That's the ultimate goal. Is we want it to be inclusive, and inclusion means everyone's invited to the party. So
well, if you're great,
absolutely.
they're great. They're great. You're great.
Yeah.
This is your community. You know, start calling yourself the movement. Put it out there. Put that hashtag. Everything that you join our movement. We're all, you know, we're all for one and one for all. You know, start creating momentum. And it's not about you as being influencers. I'm not an influencer. My tribe is what is that's what it is. That's where it really exists. I could be on top of a mountain saying all my lollyisms, but if nobody's listening, right, who cares?
Yeah.
The three of you are influential, that are creating a community of influencers, and together you will impact the world. That I know for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just want to empower everyone to feel part of it. Thank you very much. I know that you're short on time, as we've discussed. So thank you very much, Lolly Daskal. It's been Daskal. I'm getting tongue-tied. That's my dyslexia for you. I mucked it up right at the end. Right, cut. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lolly.
Thank you.
Lolly, thank you for your work. You're touching a lot of lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.